Levi. The aka Yoruba, Odudwa, Kwara, Kogi and Edo state people. The descendants of Levi are the entire people of western Nigeria, which are Lagos, Ogun, Oyo, Osun, Ondo, Okiti, Kwara, Edo and Kogi states. The descendants of Levi also extended to modern countries such as Benin Republic, Togo, Ghana, Liberia, Sierra Leone, Ivory Coast, Gambia, Senegal and Guinea. Unlike the Igbos, who knew they had Hebrew connection but couldn't explain it, the Yorubas never knew about the Jewish heritage and never claimed it. The Southwest people are known as Yorubas, and they claim to be descendants of Odudwa, son of Lamurudu, who was a king in Mecca. Not everybody in western Nigeria are Yorubas. The bloodline Yorubas are descendants of Canaan, the fourth son of Ham. Bible stated that, "So I have come down to rescue them from the hand of the Egyptians and to bring them up out of that land into a good and spacious land, a land flowing with milk and honey, the home of the Canaanites, Hittites, Amorites, Perizzites, Hivites and Jebusites." Exodus 3:8. According to the Bible, the Canaanites were the original owners of the land of Israel. The Canaanites were scattered among nations in the Arabian Peninsula after they were driven from the land of Israel. One of the places the Canaanites settled was Mecca, in present-day Saudi Arabia. Odudwa and his bloodline descendants in western Nigeria are not Jews. The Yorubas make up less than 1% of the people that settled in western Nigeria. How and when did the Leviticus Jews become known as Odudwa people? According to Yoruba history, King Lamurudu and his son, Prince Odudwa, were powerful and influential idol worshippers in Mecca. In the 630 AD, when the Islamic Revolution began in Mecca, the Mohammedans, followers of Muhammad, invaded the Lamurudu's palace, destroyed all his idols and killed him. King Lamurudu was killed, but Odudwa and his household were able to escape, and they fled to western Nigeria. Prince Odudwa and his entourage arrived in western Nigeria between 650 to 700 AD and brought some idols with him. According to Yoruba history, Odudwa and his entourage met people at Ife when they arrived, and the spiritual temple had already been established by Obatala. If Odudwa met people in Ife, where did the people he met in western Nigeria come from? Odudwa was a prince, so he most likely arrived in Nigeria with a 100 to 200 people entourage. 200 people cannot overturn a bloodline that had lived in this region at least 830 years and had migrated up to Senegal and Gambia, and with a minimum population of 1,500,000 people. Some believe that the people of western Nigeria migrated from Sudan, making them descendants of Ham. This is a complete fabrication, with no historical or biblical evidence to back up its claims. We already learned that the Hausa migrated from Sudan and are also ancient Egyptians. The western and northern Nigerians are not identical in any way, and their racial profiles are a testament to this fact. Islam is the only thing that the southern and northern Nigerias have in common. We continue with the prophetic identification of the Leviticus people, now known as the Yorubas. Since all Jews were chased out of Israel at the same time, it makes sense to conclude that both the tribes of Judah and Levi arrived on Nigeria's coastline at the same time. Why did Judah and Levi travel and settle in the same location? Before we provide the answers, we must identify the characteristics of Levi and his descendants. Levi chapter 1 stated that, "The copy of the words of Levi, the things which he ordained unto his sons, according to all that they should do, and what things should befall them until the day of judgment." Levi 1:1. "And by thee, Levi and Judah shall the Lord appear among men, saving every race of men." Levi 1:14. Just as we read about Judah, when Levi was about to die, he gathered his children to himself and explained what would happen to them up until the day of judgment. Levi told his children that both his tribe and the tribe of Judah would produce the Messiah, who would come to save humanity. Levi continued, he said, "And from the Lord's portion shall be thy life, and he shall be thy field and vineyard, and fruits, gold, and silver." Levi 1:15. The key phrases here are, he, God shall be thy field. Field means a profession or career path. He, God shall be thy vineyard. Vineyard means garden or plantation or an estate. This implied that the Levites shall live and labor in the house of God. He shall be thy fruits, gold, and silver. Fruits means blessings or welfare. Silver and gold mean wealth. These prophecies literally meant that the descendants of Levi would devote their entire lives to serving God only. The Lord's portion shall be thy life. What portion did God assign to Levi and his descendants? Levi narrated to his children how he encountered 7 angels, and they ordained him as a priest unto the Lord. And there again I saw a vision as the former, after we had spent there 70 days. And I saw 7 men in white raiment, garment, saying unto me, Arise, put on the robe of the priesthood, and the crown of righteousness, and the breastplate of understanding, the garment of truth, and the late of faith, and the turban of the head, and the ephod of prophecy. And they severally carried these things and put them on me and said unto me, From henceforth become a priest of the Lord, thou and thy seed forever. Levi 3:13-15. The prophecy says, From henceforth, become a priest of the Lord, thou and thy seed forever. It's important to understand that the priesthood of Levi didn't end with him, it continued with his descendants forever. The prophecy stated that, thou and thy seed forever. This meant that both Levi and all his descendants would be priests and prophets of the Lord forever. Levi continued, he said, And some of them shall be high priests, and judges, prophets, and scribes. For by their mouth shall the holy place be guarded. Levi 3:29. Here, the angels classified the priesthood of the Leviticus people. The classification of the priesthood of Levi are as follows. Some will be high priest referring to pastors. Some will be judges referring to prophets. Some will be scribes referring to recorders and authors of God's words. This ordination implies that only the Levites will have the authority to speak God's words, and through them alone will God speak to his people. Not everyone in the tribe of Levi is a priest or prophet, but if priests or prophets are needed in Israel, they must be appointed from the tribe of Levi. What did the other patriarchs say about Levi and Judah? Reuben said, Therefore, I command you to hearken to Levi, because he shall know the law of the Lord, and shall give ordinances for judgment, and shall sacrifice for all Israel until the consummation of the times, as the anointed high priest, of whom the Lord spake. For he, Levi, shall bless Israel and Judah, because him hath the Lord chosen to be king over all the nation. Reuben 2:26-29. Simeon said, And now, my children, obey Levi and Judah, and be not lifted up against these 2 tribes, for from them shall arise unto you the salvation of God. For the Lord shall raise up from Levi as it were a high priest, and from Judah as it were a king, God and man, he shall save all the Gentiles and the race of Israel. Simeon 3:10-11. Judah said the following about Levi and his descendants, And now, my children, I command you, love Levi, that ye may abide, and exalt not yourselves against him, lest ye be utterly destroyed. 2. For to me the Lord gave thee kingdom, and to him the priesthood, and he set thee kingdom beneath the priesthood. To me, he gave the things upon the earth, and to him, the things in the heavens. As the heaven is higher than the earth, so is the priesthood of God higher than the earthly kingdom. Judah 4:1-4. Issachar said, And Levi and Judah were glorified by the Lord even among the sons of Jacob, for the Lord gave them an inheritance, and to Levi he gave the priesthood, and to Judah the kingdom. Issachar 1:43. And leaving husbandry, they, Levi and Judah, will follow after their own wicked devices, and they shall be dispersed among the Gentiles, and shall serve their enemies. Issachar 2:3. Dan said, And there shall arise unto you from the tribe of Judah and of Levi the salvation of the Lord, and he shall make war against Belial. Dan 2:10. All the patriarchs of Israel made it clear to their descendants that the kingdom of God and salvation of mankind would be established through the tribes of Levi and Judah. Simon said, The Lord shall raise up from Levi as it were a high priest, and from Judah as it were a king, God and man. Simeon 3:11. What does this statement mean? The statement implied that the Messiah would be both God and man, and that the Messiah would reign as high priest in heaven and as a king on earth. This literally means that Jesus first lived on earth as man. Jesus is currently in heaven as the high priest in the heavenly tabernacle. Jesus will reign as king on earth when he returns. Naphtali said to his descendants, And I saw, for I was there, and behold, a holy writing appeared to us, saying, Assyrians, Medes, Persians, Chaldeans, Syrians, shall possess in captivity the 12 tribes of Israel. Naphtali 2:8. Naphtali also said, And Joseph fled away upon a little boat, and we were all divided upon 9 planks, and Levi and Judah were together. 15 And we were all scattered unto the ends of the earth. Naphtali 2:14-15. God revealed to Naphtali in a vision the names of the nations that will enslave the 12 tribes of Israel and how they will be scattered around the world. Naphtali's vision revealed that all the 12 tribes of Israel would go into captivity. The vision also revealed that the 12 tribes of Israel would be carried away by boats. The vision stated that the Israelites will be carried to 9 different locations throughout the world. Naphtali revealed the following about the enslavement of the 12 tribes of Israel. A holy writing appeared to us, saying, Assyrians, Medes, Persians, Chaldeans, Syrians, shall possess in captivity the 12 tribes of Israel. Naphtali 2:8. Naphtali's vision was fulfilled when Israel sinned, and God allowed the Assyrian king to capture and scatter them among nations that are beyond the Euphrates River. We already learned that the Assyrian king captured Israel and scattered them among the Medes, Persians, and Syrians, just as Naphtali saw in a vision. The combination of Levi, Judah and Benjamin makes up the nation of Judah. The Chaldeans are the Americans, and we have already learned about how they came to Africa, captured the Jews, and carried them to the Americas as slaves. The prophecy stated that Levi and Judah were together, and we were all scattered unto the ends of the earth. Naphtali 2:14-15. It's interesting that Naphtali specifically mentioned that Levi and Judah would be together, and they would be carried away in the same boat as slaves. If the Americans would capture and carry Levi and Judah as slaves together, it means they would need to be in the same location. It's important to understand that the destinies of Levi and Judah are intertwined. This means anywhere Levi goes, Judah must follow. The destinies of Levi and Judah serve the same purpose on earth. The tribe of Judah is given the right to produce the king. The tribe of Levi is given the responsibility to anoint kings chosen by God and provide spiritual guidance to them. As king, Judah would provide leadership and defend the nation. The high priests and the prophets would provide spiritual guardians to both the kings and the people. This explains why there's always a prophet attached to the kings of Israel and Judah. Examples of some kings and prophets attached to them are King Saul and Prophet Samuel, King David and Prophet Nathan, King Solomon and Prophet Nathan, King Rehoboam and Prophet Abijah, King Ahab and Prophet Elijah, etc. And King Zedekiah and Prophet Jeremiah, the last king of Judah. The prophecy stated that, "And from the Lord's portion shall be thy life." If we look closely at the ancient map of Israel, we see that the tribe of Levi did not receive any land as inheritance. The book of Numbers 18 stated that, I give to the Levites all the tithes in Israel as their inheritance in return for the work they do while serving at the tent of meeting. Numbers 18:21. Because the Levites didn't receive any inheritance, God compensated the appointed priest with all the tithes from other tribes to support their well-being. According to Joshua 21, each tribe granted the Levites 4 cities to live in, as well as grazing fields for agriculture. A total of 48 cities were allotted to the Levites out of the inheritance of the other tribes. 2 Chronicles recorded the departure of Levi from Israel. It stated that the Levites even abandoned the grazing lands and property and came to Judah and Jerusalem, because Jeroboam and his sons had rejected them as priests of the Lord. 2 Chronicles 11:14. Even though Israel had been separated into the 2 nations, Israel and Judah, the Levites continued to live and graze on the land given to them. Because Jeroboam, the king of Israel at the time, rejected the Levites as priests over Israel and encouraged idolatry, the Levites who had resided in Israel abandoned the cities that had been allocated to them. The Levites refused to participate in Israel's idolatry, so they abandoned their allotted land and relocated to Jerusalem, in Judah, where the kings, the temple, the prophets, and the high priest were based. This was why no Levites were captured and scattered with the Israelites into Assyria, Gaza, and Medes. The prophecy of Naphtali stated that Levi and Judah were together in the same ship to where they scattered. This simply means before Levi and Judah are carried away as slaves in the same boat, they must first be in the same location in Africa. The tribes of Levi and Judah arrived and settled in southern Nigeria at the same time, and this explains why they had to settle next to each other. The Jews continued to practice Judaism despite witnessing the death and resurrection of Jesus and seeing that the temple curtain was torn from top to bottom. This is why Apostle Paul was determined to kill the disciples for speaking against the temple ceremonies and promoting the resurrection of Christ and Christianity. The Jews continued to regard Jesus as a blasphemer until they were driven from Israel to Africa. When the Jews arrived in Nigeria, they probably blamed their predicament on the Romans but was unaware that it was an act of God. When the Jews arrived in Nigeria, they chose a king from the tribe of Judah and built a palace. The Jews also built a temple and appointed high priests from the tribe of Levi. Some Igbos advocating for the state of Biafra claim that the old Bendel state, now Edo and Delta states, was previously part of Igbo land. This claim may be true, if we consider how the ancient Jewish communities were set up. Understanding how ancient Israel was set up will help us understand how the Jews in Nigeria set up themselves. The border between the tribes of Levi and Judah was Old Bendel State, now known as Edo and Delta states. 2 Chronicles stated that, "Then Solomon began to build the temple of the Lord in Jerusalem on Mount Moriah." 2 Chronicles 3:1. From the above verse, we learned that the ancient Jewish temple was built inside Jerusalem, in the territory of Judah. If the Jews that arrived in Nigeria were to build a temple, it would be in Judah's territory, Igbo country, just as it was in Israel, where they were driven from. It's mandatory for the Levites to settle near the tribe of Judah so that the people and prophets might be close to the kings, and it is also customary for appointed high priests to live within the temple. Edo State is home to one of the largest structures in the world. Historians call it the Walls of Benin, but the Edo people call it Ia. The strange thing about this Great Wall is that nobody, not even the Europeans or the Edo people, knew who built it or when it was built. Historical records show that the Great Wall is 9,900 miles, 16,000 kilometers, long. It was estimated that the Great Wall was built in early 800 AD, and it was completed in the late 1400 AD. I believe that the Great Wall was built much earlier than 800 AD because it would not take the Jews more than 700 years to reconnect with the God. The British invaded the now Edo state in 1897, destroyed most part of the temple and stole most treasures in it. There are many similarities between the Great Wall of Benin and the first tabernacle built by Moses. We can see the temples, yellow circle, were built inside a smaller area within the walls. We also see another wall, red circles, where the high priest performed their rituals. We also see architectural resemblance between the Great Wall of Benin, burned Second Jewish Temple, and the proposed Third Jewish Temple in Israel. The yellow circle showed the temples are built within the walls or fences. The red circles showed the walls or fences. This is not coincidental. The Jews in Nigeria knew exactly what they were doing when they built the Great Wall. The only difference between the Great Wall in Benin and other Jewish temples is that it is cylindrical or round, while the others are square in design. This is the current images of the wall of the Great Wall of Benin. Before the transatlantic slave trade began, Alauda gave us an idea into the traditions of the people of southern Nigeria. Alauda wrote that, "As our manners are simple, our luxuries are few. The dress of both sexes is nearly the same. It generally consists of a long piece of calico, or muslin, wrapped loosely round the body, somewhat in the form of a highland." Alauda explained that the Jews wore calico fabric as a wrapper around their waists. This is where the entire southern Nigerian people, both traditional and civil societies, got their wrapper tradition from. We see the Edo, the Yoruba and the South traditional priests wear wrapper. Men and women wear wrapper in the southern Nigerian civil societies. Alauda wrote that, "I have before remarked that the natives of this part of Africa are extremely cleanly. This necessary habit of decency was with us a part of religion, and therefore we had many purifications and washings, indeed, almost as many, and used on the same occasions. Those that touched the dead at any time were obliged to wash and purify themselves before they could enter a dwelling house. Every woman too, at certain times, was forbidden to come into a dwelling house, or touch any person, or anything we ate." Alauda explained the religion of his people required perfect cleanliness. Cleanliness was a major practice of the ancient Judaism religion. After God instructed Moses to build the earthly tabernacle, God gave him several ceremonial laws that will be practiced in the temple by the high priests. The ceremonial laws are listed in Leviticus chapter 15. One of such ceremonial laws was, "If the man spits on you, you must wash your clothes and bathe yourself in water, and you will remain unclean until evening." Leviticus 15:8. Judaism was a very hygienic religion. Alauda wrote that, "Though we had no places of public worship, we had priests and magicians, or wise men. They calculated our time, and foretold events, as their name imported." From Alauda's narration, it's clear that the Jews, especially the high priests, were heavily involved with falsehood. If the Jews practiced falsehood, it meant they had abandoned Judaism. Why did the Jews abandon Judaism and adopted pagan practices despite building the temple? God revealed the future of the Jews to Jeremiah and said, "They, the Jews, have returned to the sins of their ancestors, who refused to listen to my words. They have followed other gods to serve them. Both Israel and Judah have broken the covenant I made with their ancestors. Therefore, this is what the Lord says, I will bring on them a disaster they cannot escape. Although they cry out to me, I will not listen to them." Jeremiah 11:10-11. The reference to a disaster they cannot escape refers to driving Israel and Judah from the promised land of Israel. The prophecy says, "Although they cry out to me, I will not listen to them." When the temple was built, the Jews would try to pray to God as a people with the hope that God would guide them to return to Israel as he did in the past, but God would not hear them. Why did God ignore the prayers of the Jews? God did not hear the prayers of Jews because they prayed to him through a wrong way. Instead of praying in the name of Jesus Christ, the Jews continued to pray to God through Judaism, through temple worship, as they had done in Israel before their expulsion to Africa. The Jews continued to reject Jesus and his Calvary work, refusing to accept that Calvary had replaced Judaism and its temple ceremonies, which is why the temple curtain was split in two. Alaudus said that, "We had priests and magicians, or wise men. They calculated our time, and foretold events, as their name imported." The Jews resorted to falsehood when they didn't hear from God. Magicians or wise men, also known as astrology. They calculated our time, also known as horology. Foretold events, also known as soothsaying. All these practices are completely against God's commandments. Alaudus said that, "They wore their beards, and when they died, they were succeeded by their sons." Alaudus narrated that the high priest maintained long beards, just as it was with Leviticus priest in the Bible. Leviticus 21 confirmed this and stated that, "Priests must not shave their heads or shave off the edges of their beards." Leviticus 21:5. King Eri also maintained a long beard. Obatala was also depicted as having a long beard. The Jews built the Great Wall of Benin as the permanent site for the temple. The appointed high priests from the tribe of Levi lived within and around the temple, while other Levites settled in various parts of western Nigeria. This suggests that the people of Edo, Ekiti, Ondo, and Delta states are direct descendants of the high priests who spread from the temple. This why we see very strong practices of paganism and the same traditional custom in these regions. Obatala. The Yoruba belief Obatala was a goddess, an ariser, and he created the world and everything in it. It is believed that the earth was covered with water, and Oludumare, referring to God, sent Obatala to earth with some sand, a palm tree, and a chicken, instructed Obatala to pour sand over the water, spread it with a fowl, and plant a palm tree on it. This is not accurate, but it is not entirely incorrect if compared to the Bible story. The reason historians don't regard African histories as reliable source of information for historical purpose is because they are given to their children orally. Africans don't record their important histories. Instead, they pass them on to their children as stories, and it's believed that one generation could alter the facts by adding or removing the truths. According to John chapter 1, God sent his son, Jesus, to create the world, but the Yoruba story stated that Oludumare, God, sent Obatala to do the creation. We can see that the two accounts are nearly identical, with the exception that Jesus was referred to as Obatala. The Yoruba version is not entirely false, but it's clearly a case of misrepresentation of the facts. We will later learn how the Jews lost their history. The prophecies stated that, "Therefore, this is what the Lord says, I will bring on them a disaster they cannot escape. Although they cry out to me, I will not listen to them." Jeremiah 11:11. The Jews would not accept that their expulsion from the promised land was an act of God, and they would blame the Roman soldiers for their predicament. As they usually do, the Jews would naturally want to reconnect with God for guidance on how to return to Israel, but God did not listen to their prayers, as Jeremiah prophesied. Jews would be worried and confused about their new situation because they are not used to not hearing from God for a long time. According to the Bible, if the Israelites don't hear from God, they quickly drift away from God and follow something else. This is their pattern of behavior, and that's exactly what the Jews did when they arrived in Nigeria. The golden calf incident is a perfect example of Israel's pattern of behavior. According to Exodus 32, the Israelites forced Aaron to create a golden calf for them to worship while Moses was away for 40 days to receive the 10 Commandments from God. The incident of the golden calf showed typical Israel's and Jewish behavior towards God. The Jews are an extremely stubborn and impatient people. The Jews have little regard for their own valuable things. If the Jews don't hear from God on time, they quickly abandon him. This was exactly how our fathers behaved before they were driven from Israel. If Jews didn't change throughout Bible history, it's very unlikely that they changed when they arrive in Africa. What religion did the Jews adopt after abandoning Judaism? The Jews, particularly the Levites, are deeply spiritual people. When the Jews did not hear from God, they became spiritually empty, so they turned to other things to fill the emptiness. The biblical account of Simon the sorcerer depicted the typical Jewish behavior. Acts chapter 8 stated that, "Now for some time a man named Simon had practiced sorcery in the city and amazed all the people of Samaria. He boasted that he was someone great. 10 And all the people, both high and low, gave him their attention and exclaimed, 'This man is rightly called the great power of God.' They followed him because he had amazed them for a long time with his sorcery." Act 8, 9-11. After the death and resurrection of Jesus, during the Apostles' era, Jews continuously involved in sorcery, divination, and other sorts of magic. Since most Jews at the time rejected Jesus, it is logical to assume that they brought these practices to Africa. Alaudis stated that, "We had priests and magicians, or wise men. They calculated our time, and foretold events." Alauda confirmed that the Jewish high priest practiced sorcery, magic, astrology, and other forms of falsehood. Obatala was a mortal man, not a goddess as we are led to believe. Obatala was not a Yoruba man. He probably helped establish Ife and died before Adudwa arrived. Obatala was a Levite and a high priest. Like the high priests of Benin, Obatala misled the Jews in other parts of western Nigeria into embracing falsehood. Obatala is not a common name in western region. Obatala is a Hebrew name like Obadiah, Obedian, Obedias, Obt, etc. The name is also identical to recorded Jewish names who were carried to the Americas, such as Obatola, Obati, Obatare, Olabate, Adobatar, etc. The Ifa religion. Obatala led the Jews to embrace sorcery, divination, root cutting and making charms, and it was these practices that brought about the Ifa religion. Other modern Leviticus nations are Benin Republic, Togo, Ghana, Liberia, Sierra Leone, Ivory Coast, Senegal, Gambia and Guinea. All these nations also embraced the Ifa religion. Wikipedia stated that, Ifa is a religion that is practiced through the use of divination, sorcery, cutting of roots to make charms and adoration of the dead, and this practice originated from the ancestral homeland of the Yoruba people. Obatala led the Jews and assisted to develop these falsehoods into the Ifa religion, and he also helped to build the Ifa spiritual temple in Ife. We will see another example of a typical behavior of the Jews which was displayed in Africa. Act chapter 8 stated that, "The Jews declared Simon as the great power of God, and they followed him." This is exactly why God had to bury Moses in a secret place. If the Israelites had been allowed to bury Moses or even know where he was buried, they would have abandoned God, made Moses an idol, and worshipped him. This is exactly what the Levites did with Obatala. Obatala must have demonstrated extraordinary spiritual powers for the Jews to immortalize him. The prophecy stated that, "The Lord will drive you and the king you set over you to a nation unknown to you or your ancestors. There you will worship other gods, gods of wood and stone." The prophecies of Deuteronomy 28 were all fulfilled after the Jews were expelled from Israel. The prophecy stated that, "The Lord will drive you and the king you set over you to a nation unknown to you or your ancestors." Before we continue, it is important to understand that a few prophecies against Israel, i.e. the nations of Israel and Judah, had dual fulfillments. What I meant was that if the sins are the same, the consequences or punishment for the sins, as already prophesied, will also remain the same. We remember that Israel had not been divided into two separate nations when these prophecies were made. Let us look at how this prophecy had separate fulfillments for both Israel and Judah. 2 Kings stated that, "Therefore, King Shalmaneser seized him, Hoshi, the king of Israel, and put him in prison. The king of Assyria invaded the entire land, marched against Samaria and laid siege to it for 3 years. He settled them in Hala, in Gozan on the Haba River and in the towns of the Medes. 2 Kings 17. 1-6. As we previously learned, the nation of Israel rejected God, and therefore God allowed the king of Assyria to capture the Israelites, including the reigning king, and scatter them to nations beyond the Euphrates River. My point here is that both the Israelites and their reigning king were captured and expelled from Israel as prophesied. Talking about the nation of Judah. Zedekiah was Judah's last king before Jerusalem was destroyed in 586 BCE, during the prophet Jeremiah's days, and they were taken captive in Babylon for 70 years. The kings of Judah, including King Herod, who ruled the nation of Judah before and after Jesus' death, were not bloodline Jews from the tribe of Judah. In fact, they were Edomites, descendants of Esau. The Jews clearly rejected Jesus and Calvary and therefore rejected God. As Moses prophesied, God used Roman soldiers to scatter both Jews and Edomites, including the reigning Edomite king, to Africa. The Jews were expelled from the Promised Land in 70 AD, which was the first time this prophecy was fulfilled against them. The prophecy stated that, "The Lord will drive you and the king you set over you to a nation unknown to you or your ancestors." The term king here referred to the kings that the Jews, both the tribes of Levi and Judah, would choose for themselves when they arrived in Africa, and the Jews and the kings they chose for themselves were all conquered and carried to the Americas as slaves. The prophecy also stated that, "There you will worship other gods, gods of wood and stone." The tribe of Judah did not appoint non-Jewish kings, but they did practice pagan religion. The Igbo goddess is referred to as Amadioha, the deity of thunder and lightning. On the other hand, the Levites appointed Adudwa, a Canaanite, as their divine king, and they still worship him to this day. The current Uni holds Adudwa's office and title today. We could see that the symbol on the crowns of both Adudwa and the Uni is the same. I am not sure how the Ife kingmakers elect the Uni. I'm not sure whether it's strictly Adudwa bloodline or by appointment from any family. So, I'm not sure whether the current Uni is Jewish or a direct descendant of Adudwa. However, one thing is certain, the Uni represents all Adudwa's values. If the Uni is a direct descendant of Adudwa, then both him and his children are not Jewish. The seat of the Uni of Ife is a pagan office. Adudwa brought idols to Nigeria, and he taught the Jews how to make idols that represented natural elements such as fire, water, thunder, wind, and iron. The prophecy stated that, "There you will worship other gods, gods of wood and stone." God had warned the Israelites to avoid the ways of the Canaanites in Deuteronomy 7. Deuteronomy 7 stated that, "When the Lord your God brings you into the land you are entering to possess and drives out before you many nations, the Hittites, Girgashites, Amorites, Canaanites, Perizzites, Hivites and Jebusites, 7 nations larger and stronger than you." In Deuteronomy 7, God said, "Do not intermarry with them. Do not give your daughters to their sons or take the daughters for your sons, for they will turn your children away from following me to serve other gods." The Canaanites were the owners of the land of Israel, but God drove them out because they and other nations polluted it with idolatry. God strongly warned Israel not to associate with the Canaanites and other nations that had lived in Canaan land because they were capable of turning the hearts of the Israelites away from God. This is exactly what Adudwa did to the Jews. Adudwa, a Canaanite, helped to turn the Jews' hearts away from God. God drove the Canaanites out of Canaan land because they practiced idolatry. The Canaanites scattered throughout the Arabian Peninsula. It was for this same reason King Lamurudu was killed during the Islamic Revolution, and Adudwa and his family were expelled from Mecca. God confirmed his covenant with Israel, Deuteronomy 7, saying, "For you are a people holy to the Lord your God. The Lord your God has chosen you out of all the peoples on the face of the earth to be his people, his treasured possession. Deuteronomy 7:6. The Jews are the chosen and holy people of God, and they are forbidden to worship other gods, but they allowed Adudwa to lead them astray and adopted his idolatrous lifestyle. That's why the following deities are prominent amongst the Levites. Such god is Sango, god of thunder; Ogun, the god of iron; Yemaja, goddess of marine spirit; Morimi, god of fire; Oshun, goddess of fertility and river. The statement underlined in red is from Wikipedia, which stated that Adudwa was a divine king of the Yoruba people. What does divine mean? Divine is defined as of or like God or a god. Just as God is God, so is Jesus, because he is God's son. In the same way, Adudwa is the god of the Yoruba people. This means that the current Uni of Ife is also the god of the Yoruba people. According to prophecy, the Leviticus Jews will worship Adudwa, a human and a false god, as their divine god. When the Jews crowned Adudwa as king and began to worship him, he became the god. Many Leviticus Jews will reject this statement, but it doesn't mean it's not true. When the Jews celebrate the annual Alojo festival, they foolishly worship Adudwa. The Alojo annual festival is an ancient festival that celebrates Adudwa. The prophecy states, "There you will worship other gods, gods of wood and stone." Deuteronomy 28:6. We see Leviticus Jews honoring Adudwa's Alojo festivals by displaying and celebrating with several idols. It is important for Jews to understand that the Alojo festival and all other traditional festivals are unbiblical in every way. It's paganism and they are idolatry and satanic. This will also be the fulfillment of prophetic curses against the Jews. When you participate in a Yoruba traditional festival, such as the Alojo event, you are honoring Adudwa, who represents the Uni. It is believed that the Yorubas worship over 400 deities. These deities are also worshipped in other Leviticus nations, such as Togo, Benin Republic, Ghana, Ivory Coast, Sierra Leone, Senegal, Gambia, and the entire Guinea region. The book, titled Sailing to Western Sudan, was written by a Portuguese cartographer. The book was about a cruise voyage to India through West Africa. In the 15th century, Gary, a Portuguese cartographer, and some of his crew members explained in his book titled Sailing to Western Sudan, and he narrated how they encountered some Jews along the Gambian River in West Africa while searching for new sea route to India. The countries that are along the Gambia River are Gambia and Senegal. The book stated that, along the way they landed in all sorts of places along the coast, where they traded with the natives and documented everything they saw. Sailing to Western Sudan. While looking for a shortcut to the Indian Ocean, Gary and his crew chose to use the Gambian River. Gary wrote that, one of these documents, written by an anonymous Portuguese navigator, provides us with a rare glimpse into a very strange phenomenon, a group of Jews who lived in West Africa, near the Gambia River. Sailing to Western Sudan. Gary and his crew observed a few villages along the river's coastline, so they stopped, entered the villages, and spoke with the people. The following was their discovery. The crew members stated that the people who lived in the villages along the Gambian River's coastline were Jews. How did the sailors know that the people who lived along the Gambian River were Jews? Why did the sailors conclude that the people living near the Gambian River were Jewish? The above statement gives a sense of absolute certainty and conviction. I will talk more about this later. Gary said that, some of the people here believe in Muhammad, but the majorities are idol worshippers. Gary stated that, in this land there are Jews known as Gauls, and they are black like the rest of the inhabitants. But they have no synagogues and do not conduct Jewish ceremonies. The truth is always consistent, no matter who is telling the story. The Portuguese said that some Jews who lived along the Gambian River believed in Muhammad, which mean they converted to Islam. Gary revealed the following about the people who lived along the Gambia River. Majority of the Jews were idol worshippers. The Jews along the Gambian rivers were known as Gwals. The Jews were of black skin. The Jews did not have Jewish synagogue and did not practice Jewish ceremonies. What struck me about this discovery was that there was nothing in Gambian communities that suggested that the people there were Jewish. Despite not seeing a Jewish temple or anyone performing Jewish ceremonies, the sailors concluded that the people were Jewish. The sailors could reach such conclusions because they had prior knowledge of the identity of the people who lived along the Gambian River. The people of Western Nigeria, Togo, Benin Republic, Ghana, Ivory Coast, Sierra Leone, Senegal, Gambia and Guinea are all Leviticus people. All the Levite nations embraced Islam and idolatry, just as the Gambians did. The Portuguese stated that the Jews that lived in villages along the Gambian River were known as Gwals. What does Gaul mean? The reviewer of the book contributed the following about the word Gaul. He wrote that, many societies in West Africa have wandering storytellers known as griot, jelly, jali, jawal, gaulu, etc. It seems that these are the same Gauls our Portuguese navigator saw. Oxford Dictionary defined a griot as a member of a class of traveling poets, musicians, and storytellers who maintain a tradition of oral history in parts of West Africa. The Gauls are also known as griot. The storytelling elders in West African villages were known as the griots. The village elders were known as griots, and they were responsible for preserving and teaching the cultures and history of the land to future generations. I believe some villages still practice this tradition till this day. Back to our previous question. Why did the sailors believe that the people living near the Gambian River were Jewish? The sailors could reach such conclusions because they were already aware of the identities of the people who lived along the Gambian River. The Jews were a well-known people, and the scattering of Jews from Israel by Roman soldiers was not a hidden event. It must have attracted the attention of the entire world at the time. And it is normal for the sailors to do some research about the destination before embarking on such a dangerous journey. So, the world knew where the Jews had been scattered, and historians documented the event. As mentioned earlier, in 1747, an English man, cartographer Emmanuel Bowen, created collections of maps depicting a nation West Africa as Kingdom of Judah. He named the place Slave Coast. And a little above the name is the phrase KM of Judah. K.M. is the abbreviation word for kingdom. Cartographer Emmanuel Bowen was accurate to describe the Slave Coast as Kingdom of Judah. As we learnt earlier, there are two sets of God's people. The nation of Israel are known as the Israelites, and the nation of Judah are known as the Jews. The Jews are a combined tribes of Judah, Levi and Benjamin. The Slave Coast are present-day Lagos State, Togo and Republic of Benin. The reference to Kingdom of Judah on the map referred to the entire Jewish population in West Africa. Why would an English cartographer describe the people living in West Africa as Jews, if they are not Jewish? In 1766, French man, Duke of Orleans, gave a notation that Nigritia, meaning Negroland, was populated by the Jews. The red circle shows the notation Nigritia, which means Negroland in yellow circle. Looking closely at the same map. Looking at yellow circle, we see the Dahomey people were also referred to, Weda, in reference to Kingdom of Judah mentioned in Emmanuel Bowen's map of 1447. When the map is zoomed in properly, we can see that the Dahomey people were described as Dahomey Jews. The Ashanti people, modern Ghana, is described as Jewish Trace. Trace means to find or be discovered by investigation. This literally means the cartographer discovered that the Ashanti people were Jews. Another source describes Dahomey Kingdom as Jewish people. A 1926 report published by the Jewish scholar Jonas Kreppel claimed that a large community of black Jews existed in the interior of Dahomey. According to Kreppel, these black Jews had their own central temple, certainly not as big as the one in Benin, Edo State, where they sacrificed animals and laws were engraved on tablets that were hung on the temple walls, and that they had a great number of priestly families who preached to the community. Jonas Kreppel explained that the city of Ouidah, Judah, is on the coast of Benin, formerly Dahomey. In 1926, there was a large Hebrew community of black Jews in Benin, West Africa. They had a central temple and a Pentateuch written in Hebrew. In their temple are found many laws engraved on the tablets, which are attached to the temple walls. They had a high priest, with a large number of priestly families, whose members walked from house to house rendering educational and religious instruction to each family of the community. Jonas Kreppel explained that the people of modern-day Benin Republic are Jews, that they had a Jewish temple, certainly not as big as the one in Benin, Edo State, and that they had a great number of priestly families who preached to the community. The two key phrases here are, they had a central temple and a Pentateuch written in Hebrew. And in their temple are found many laws engraved on the tablets, which are attached to the temple walls. Before we delve into the above two key phrases, it's important to remember that it's customary for the Jews to have one temple in which they must travel to worship, as it was in the Bible, but Jonas Kreppel said there was another Jewish temple in the same region. I believe there was a great division or conflict between the Levites of Benin, Edo State, and the Levites of Dahomey, modern-day Benin Republic, which resulted in the building of another temple. What could have happened? Alauda, the Portuguese sailors, and Jonas Kreppel provided insight into what may have occurred that eventually divided the Leviticus people. According to Alauda's and Portuguese sailors' accounts, Jews in southern Nigeria and along the Gambia River worshipped the deities. However, Jonas Kreppel's account explained that the Jews in Dahomey, now Benin Republic, had a temple with the many laws of the Pentateuch engraved on tablets, written in Hebrew and hung on temple walls, as well as having a large number of priestly families whose members walked from house to house, providing educational and religious instruction to each family in the community. These are two distinctive behaviors displayed by the same people in the same region. So, what happened that led the same Jews to produce these distinctive practices? We must create a hypothetical scenario to understand what led to the division between the Jewish people. Let's examine Jonas Kreppel's account again. He wrote that they, the Jews of Dahomey, had a high priest, with a large number of priestly families, whose members walked from house to house rendering educational and religious instruction to each family of the community. Jonas Kreppel stated that a large number of Leviticus priests went out for a major evangelism throughout the Dahomey region, preaching and reminding them of the commandments of God and Hebrew traditions. What must have happened was that after the Jews arrived in Africa, some of them, particularly those in southern Nigeria, turned to idolatry and falsehood, which led to the rejection of Judaism, and it is possible that other Jewish communities outside of southern Nigeria adopted these falsehoods. Though most Jews abandoned Judaism and adopted idolatry, but it is most likely that some became sober after their expulsion from Israel, and they returned to God through Judaism religion instead of through Christianity, and the early Dahomey Jews were certainly among those who returned to God. Jonas Kreppel wrote that, in their temple are found many laws engraved on the tablets, which are attached to the temple walls. The Dahomey Jews most likely attempted to participate in the idolatry of southern Nigerian Jews, but the priests intervened by preaching to them. To avoid participating in the falsehood of the southern Nigerian Jews, the Dahomey Jewish priests had to build their own temple where they could practice Judaism and engrave God's commandments to remind them of God. What does Pentateuch mean? The Pentateuch are the first 5 books of the Old Testament: Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. Traditionally ascribed to Moses. According to Jonas Kreppel, The many laws engraved tablets and hung on the temple walls were derived from Moses' first 5 books, which were Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy, and these laws were undoubtedly the 10 Commandments and the ceremonial laws regulating the temple ceremonies. This further confirms that the people of Benin Republic and West African coastline countries are Jewish. As previously mentioned, the Duke of Orleans map from 1766 indicated that the people who occupied the Gold Coast were Jews. Why would the Frenchman lie in his work about the people who lived there? Emmanuel Bowen and the Duke of Orleans were among the first and most respected cartographers in the world. Why would these men lie about their lifetime work? The fact that the individuals who created these maps were Caucasians or white people gives great credibility to the Jewish claim. There were no false Jews living in Israel in the 17th century. There was no controversy regarding who the bloodline Jews were, or where they are located, until the 19th century, when the Freemasons decided to steal the identity of the Jews and use it as the framework for their ultimate plans to control the world. In 1948, a certain group of white people moved to Israel and called themselves the Jews. Jesus warned us about the fake Jews in Revelation chapter 2 and 3. He said, "I know your afflictions and your poverty, yet you are rich. I know about the slander of those who say they are Jews and are not but are a synagogue of Satan." Revelation 2:9. I will make those who are of the synagogue of Satan, who claim to be Jews though they are not, but are liars. Revelation 3:9. Jesus warned us that a group of people would emerge and disguise themselves as Jews, but they belong to Satan. This is a discussion for another day. Let's continue with the prophecies concerning the tribe of Levi. Most Jews from the tribe of Levi were carried to Brazil, Cuba and America, etc. This is why eye for religion is practiced in these nations till today. The prophecy concerning Levi stated that, "And they, the angels, severally carried these things and put them on me and said unto me, From henceforth become a priest of the Lord, thou and thy seed forever." Levi 3:15. The angels informed Levi that he and all his descendants would be priests unto the Lord forever. After the Babylonian captivity, the nation of Judah never had a king from the tribe of Judah. After the Babylonian captivity, the Levites were allowed to continue performing their priestly duties. Apart from great high priests and prophets in the Bible, we have also seen evidence of great men of God among the Levites in Africa. The Great Commission of Matthew 28 empowers everybody to preach the gospel, but the Levites have greater grace to carry out God's work. The most prominent Levites were late Ayodele Joseph Babalola and late Archbishop Benson Idahosa. Anybody that is familiar with Prophet Babalola's work could compare it to the works of biblical prophets such as Moses and Elijah. Archbishop Idahosa did incredible miracles and revolutionized Protestantism in Africa and around the world. We have also seen many others such as Prophet Obadiah, Prophet Oyelami and Prophet Joseph Irontoken. There are so many others such as Prophet Akande in Eid, Prophet Jesse Oromode, Pastor A.E. Adeboye, Pastor Chris Oyakhilome, Pastor Kamuyi and Pastor T.B. Joshua. Pastor Olakoya, Pastor David Oedipo, Pastor G. Bailakani, Pastor Badejo, Pastor Abina and Reverend Duncan Williams from Ghana, just to name a few. It is important to emphasize that these men are also great scribes or authors, as prophesied by the angels. These Leviticus priests, dead and alive, have millions of followers all over the world. Since the 19th century, these men have been God's greatest servants in Nigeria, Africa, and the rest of the world. Is it coincident that all of God's great men are from the tribe of Levite? No, it is not. Above other people, the tribe of Levi has the responsibility to speak God's words. The Levites possess greater anointing and grace than anybody else, which allows them to accomplish God's task with ease. We also see some great pastors abroad, especially in America. The 3 tribes of nation of Judah have mixed, making it difficult to differentiate the Jews from one another. However, the above-mentioned American pastors are likely to be from the tribe of Levi. Levi continued with the prophecies concerning his descendants. He said, "Therefore, my children, I have learned that at the end of the ages ye will transgress against the Lord, stretching out hands to wickedness against him, and to all the Gentiles shall ye become a scorn. For our father Israel is pure from the transgressions of the chief priests, who shall lay their hands upon the Saviour of the world. And behold, I am clear from your ungodliness and transgression, which ye shall commit in the end of the ages against the Saviour of the world, Christ, acting godlessly, deceiving Israel, and stirring up against it great evils from the Lord. And ye shall deal lawlessly together with Israel, so he, Jesus, shall not bear with Jerusalem because of your wickedness, but the veil of the temple shall be rent, torn, so as not to cover your shame. 46 And ye shall be scattered as captives among the Gentiles, and shall be for a reproach and for a curse there." Levi 3:45-46. Levi knew his descendants would be involved in the death of the Messiah, so he removed himself and his father, Jacob, from their misdeeds. God held the Jews partially responsible for the killing of his son, Jesus, because they rejected him and chose Barabbas instead. Most Jews chose Barabbas over Jesus. The Pharisees who handed Jesus to the Romans to be tortured and killed were not Levites or Jews, but they were Edomites, the descendants of Esau. Despite witnessing Jesus' incredible signs and wonders, the Jews still chose Barabbas over him. Levi continued, he said, "Acting godlessly, deceiving Israel, and stirring up against it great evils from the Lord. And ye shall deal lawlessly together with Israel." How did the Pharisees act godlessly to deceive the Jews? The high point of God's relationship with Israel was the expectation of the Messiah and his mission to deliver mankind from sin and eternal death. This was why the Jewish temple was built in the first place. The high priest's main responsibility was to study the scriptures and inform the Jews about the prophecies concerning the Messiah. But when Jesus came, the Pharisees knew he was the Messiah, but they misled the Jews into rejecting him and labeling him a blasphemer, while the Leviticus priests did nothing to warn the Jews. Levi continued, he said, "For as the heaven is purer in the Lord's sight than the earth, so also be ye, the lights of Israel, purer than all the Gentiles. But if ye be darkened through transgressions, what therefore will all the Gentiles do living in blindness?" Levi 3:13-14. God appointed the Levites to be the light of Israel and the world, but he warned that their priestly pure nature would be stained by their sins. Levi prophesied that, "Yea, ye shall bring a curse upon our race, because the light of the law which was given for to lighten every man, this ye desire to destroy by teaching commandments contrary to the ordinances of God." Levi 3:15. Enoch was an end-time prophet who prophesied about false men of God. Enoch's prophecy stated that, "And now I know this mystery, that sinners will alter and pervert the words of righteousness in many ways, and will speak wicked words, and lie, and practice great deceits, and write books concerning their words." Enoch 104:10. The key words here are to alter, which means to change. And to pervert means to misrepresent something. Enoch was the first end-time prophet, and his prophecies have already been fulfilled. Levi stated that God would bring curses upon his descendants for destroying the commandments of God. Levi prophesied about the evil his descendants would commit against God. "The offerings of the Lord ye shall rob, and from his portion shall ye steal choice portions, eating them contemptuously with harlots." Levi 4:16. These prophecies were initially intended for the bloodline of Levites, but they are also extended to those who would oppose God's truth. The prophecies stated that the evil Levites would steal God's money, live in choice mansions and extravagant life, such as drive luxury cars and private jets. We would be in denial if we claim we don't see the fulfillment of these prophecies today. The prophecy stated that, From his portion shall ye steal choice portions, eating them contemptuously with harlots. We see some pastors using God's money to fornicate with women while God's people suffer in their churches. The prophecies stated that, ye will speak wicked words, and lie, and practice great deceits. We see pastors molesting members in God's name, performing fake miracles in God's name, and making ritual in churches. We see the fulfillment of these prophecies in the churches today. These shameful conducts have destroyed the church. God's church is now subject to public ridicule. Many Christians have stopped going to church because of these disgraceful conducts. The prophecy stated that, and ye shall be puffed up because of your priesthood, lifting yourselves up against men, and not only so, but also against the commands of God. Levi 4:18. What does puffed up mean? Puffed up means to have feelings and attitude of self-importance, arrogant and pompous behaviors. According to this prophecy, because of the honors, prominence, and popularity the ministry brings, many pastors would become arrogant, elevate themselves above the people, and lord over them. We see the disgusting behaviors of modern pastors and how they lord over God's people. Levi stated that, and ye shall be puffed up, also against the commands of God. Levi 4:18. The prophecy stated that many pastors would also go against God's commandments. Levi stated that, and out of covetousness ye shall teach the commandments of the Lord, wedded women shall ye pollute. Levi 4:18. What does this mean? Covetousness means an intense desire for wealth or possessions, especially for something that belongs to someone else. This simply means that many people would become pastors, prophets, or evangelists because of the money and materialism they will receive through their ministries and not because they care about the salvation or well-being of God's people. The prophecy stated that, wedded women shall ye pollute. Many men of God engage in fornication with their church members, including married women. The prophecy also stated that, for ye shall contemn the holy things with jests and laughter. Levi 4:19. What does this mean? Contemn is defined as having no regards for something. Many pastors will teach the gospel carelessly and without fear or respect for God. Many pastors will teach God's commandments with laxity, jokes, laughing, and all kinds of unseriousness. Modern churches have allowed all kinds of worldly activities to enter the church. Worldly activities such as wedding ceremonies, burial ceremonies, gay marriage ceremonies, music concert, fashion parade, Valentine celebration, comedians in the church, birthday celebration and Halloween celebration. The prophecy stated that, therefore, the temple, which the Lord shall choose, shall be laid waste through your uncleanness, and ye shall be captives throughout all nations. 21 And ye shall be an abomination unto them, and ye shall receive reproach and everlasting shame from the righteous judgment of God. Levi 4:20-21. There are 4 parts to the above prophecies. The first part of the prophecy stated that, therefore the temple, which the Lord shall choose shall be laid waste through your uncleanness. The first part of this prophecy was fulfilled after Jesus' death and resurrection. The second part of the prophecy stated that, ye shall be captives throughout all nations. The second part of the prophecy was fulfilled when the Jews, including Levites, were expelled from the land of Israel and scattered to other nations. The third part of the prophecy stated that, ye shall be captives throughout all nations, and ye shall be an abomination unto them. The fulfillment of the third part of this prophecy is currently taking place and we will discuss it later. The fourth part of the prophecy stated that, ye shall receive reproach and everlasting shame from the righteous judgment of God. The prophecy will be fulfilled on Judgment Day, when God will reward and punish everyone based on their actions.